In today's video, we have some trade talk around teams like Vancouver and Pittsburgh. We also have some free agent rumors around some players like Nazem Kadri and PK Subban. And unfortunately, we have another Hockey Canada scandal to discuss along with the 2018 scenario. And it looks as though David Quinn has been confirmed as the Sharks' new head coach. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. First up, the San Jose Sharks appear set to hire David Quinn. We had talked about this prior in the last day or so on the channel. At that point, it was more of a rumor. Now it's more confirmed. He's expected to be announced to the media, I believe, likely on Monday. But David Quinn will, in fact, be the next head coach of the San Jose Sharks. To be honest, I hope he does a good job. I hope they made the right decision, but based on his track record in New York, I don't know that he was really the best fit for the Sharks, but certainly new general manager Mike Grier feels like he is. I know a lot of times you see coaches hit the pro level, and quite oftentimes they will, make adjustments and learn from their prior mistakes or whatever they've done in the past and become better coaches. So hopefully things go a little bit better for him this time around in San Jose than it did during his time at the Big Apple. Now, of course, as I mentioned, we also have some more news on Hockey Canada, and the news is not good. It continues to get worse here. There is yet more information coming forward on yet another scandal similar to the one that happened in 2018 that we've already been discussing, and that's already basically under investigation, waiting to find out more details. Another victim apparently has come forward. Rick Westhead of TSN has been investigating after getting some more tips a couple weeks ago, and has a new story coming out. So this one's not good. Now, this one is from quite a long time ago. Doesn't really make it any different, though. It's still a really bad situation. It does not make Hockey Canada look any better, of course. We know that there's a systemic issue of covering things up, and obviously, the culture itself of hockey throughout the country. And I don't think it's fair to say just in Canada. I think it's fair to say hockey as a sport throughout North America. I can't really speak to Europe, but I know I've heard and seen lots of things in the U.S. as well. Over the years, I don't think they're completely, innocent in all this either. I think it's the sport as a general needs to improve the culture. It's just unacceptable, some of the things we've heard and that's been discovered here in the last several months and the last few years that, it just absolutely needs to get better. It needs to get better now, and heads need to roll and things need to change ASAP. So, of course, we already know about the situation in 2018. Quick recap on that is obviously that team was successful, and they were obviously went to London, Ontario later that summer for a gala, which apparently is quite common for Hockey Canada to host their junior teams afterwards in the summertime, usually for a golf tournament in a celebration of the team, in that case. And of course, there's a victim coming forward that has a lawsuit against several of the players, insisting that there was essentially a group sexual assault against them. And of course, several of the players have spoken out, said that they said they weren't there. Some have said that they're innocent. Some said that they had nothing to do with it. There's been a variety of verbiage and words used. Hard to say what's true and what's not. Only time will tell. And there's still a fairly good sized group of players that haven't said anything publicly, which I know a lot of people, like I've said before, are kind of assuming that it implies guilt, and I don't know that that's completely fair. But at the same time, with all the number of players that have spoken out, if the ones that haven't so far, you really kind of do have to wonder why, right? You would think that they're likely being advised not to, which are certainly most likely not good reasons to offer that advice legally. So we'll have to wait and see. But now there's a new scandal altogether. The 2002-2003 World Junior Championship Tournament, which would have finished in 2003, has a set of circumstances faced on itself here as well. Like I said, there is a victim who is claiming that they were also sexually assaulted by a group. I believe this one's around 6 players in Halifax. As Halifax, Nova Scotia is where this tournament was hosted. And you know what? I seen somebody else share on Twitter earlier, and I was like, holy jumpins, this was been right in front of our eyes the whole time, and a lot of people just never commented on it before. I've read a lot of hockey books over the years. I certainly read a lot of biographies or autobiographies. This one I hadn't read. I've been meaning to. But Jordan Tutu actually put out a book, and right in the book, I'll give you a snapshot here, an excerpt from it, which basically confirms that what was going on some of these sexual acts. It doesn't confirm that there was an assault, but it does confirm a lot of the activities that were going on right before us. And obviously, if it wasn't all consensual, well, then it certainly makes sense. It's talking about how a lot of these sexual events were taking place after each practice, after games, group affairs, all those things. It's right there, And Rick Westhead apparently has 3 different sources who's confirmed that they witnessed this, and apparently there is supposed to be some video. Of course, it hasn't been made public of a half dozen players with the victim. So I don't. We'll have to wait and see what more comes from it. Hockey Canada has called upon police to get involved to launch a full investigation. I would suspect they're going to ask every player to participate. At this point, all of those players, majority of them are not even playing anymore, considering that was 2003 or now 2022. I believe the only player on that team that's still active, and I'd have to double check the roster, but I believe Marc-Andre Fleury is the only one. Several other, though, are still involved in the game in some capacity. I know I did see a statement from Carlo Koliakovo, the former Leaf and Blue defenseman. I think he played for a few other teams too, who was on that team and now works in Toronto media for TSN on TSN Radio. He put out a statement saying that he wasn't involved, but he's the only one I've noticed here so far on the first day that this has become public. I'm sure Rick Westhead and TSN will be putting out a more detailed story here very soon. But say Hockey Canada has already been notified. They put out a statement this morning, and I just have to shake my head going, like, where does it end? Like, how much more is there that we don't know? This is ridiculous. This needs to stop. It needs to change. And it just makes me want to gag thinking about how many other scenarios have taken place. I've read some things that people said that this is not an unusual thing for, especially at that level. Like, it's sickening. That's common practice, amongst all this. Like, there's a serious problem. We've been talking for the last few years a lot about how hockey is for everyone and we need to be more inclusive and all that. And this is part of the toxic hockey culture that we need to change. And a lot of people, I don't think, have really entirely embraced that. I think a lot of people have, but there's still a lot more people you still hear. I see comments all the time, whether it be on this channel or elsewhere, talking about how it's not a big deal and it's not as bad as people make it out to, and da-da-da-da. And this is just further proof that it really is as bad, if not worse, than a lot of us have made it out to be. So things need to change, and we'll have to wait for more information. But this is just getting worse and worse at each day here. You just kind of make you wonder how many more victims intend to come forward here in the not too distant future. Now, a few free agent rumors here as well. I saw a report from Kevin Kurz, the athletic beat writer for the New York Islanders, suggesting that the door is not completely closed and then possibly signing one of the top free agents still in the market, Nazem Kadri. Of course, as I've mentioned before, there was some previous talk that they could be one of the teams in the mix for his services. However, I'm not completely convinced that he's really the, prime player that they need. I mean, could he be a good fit there? Sure, he's a good player. I don't think Nazem Kadri is going to make any team worse, but it's not exactly the ideal, player. Like I said, the main thing they need in the forward group is a scoring winger to play with Matthew Barzal. Nazem Kadri is normally a center. He is very offensively talented and gifted, so maybe they figure out a way to make it work. But as much as he's a great player, it just seems like it might be more of a project and might not really have that, more likelihood of success of working out, right? So we'll have to wait and see. But Kadri, still, time's ticking here. Like, we're not far from August now, and he's still not signed anywhere. So I wonder if he regrets not making a quicker decision on this. Of course, the Avalanche are still rumored to be in the mix as well. And if we see them pull off a trade, then that's likely going to signal a Kadri signing. Or if we see what happens like in Columbus today, we might see a Kadri signing followed up by a cap dump. But I mean, teams can't be doing that. Like, they need to make their moves ahead of time so that teams aren't taking such crazy advantage of them. But we'll see where that goes. Another free agent name to watch is PK Subban. I see a lot of talk around social media, a little bit here on YouTube as well, about reuniting with the Montreal Canadiens. And, I honestly do wonder if it's a possibility. Of course, we don't know where PK stands right now. Seems unlikely that he's going back to Jersey. He's a veteran guy. He's not the $9 million defenseman, but he can still play. I think he can play a smaller role for a smaller amount and still continue his career. And you know what, Montreal, if you look at the roster, it might not really, in some ways you could argue maybe it makes more sense to let the kids play. In other ways, it might make more sense to bring them in to take the pressure off the kids. If you look at their blue line, you're looking at your top pair likely being, Mike Matheson, David Savard. David Savard, I'm sorry, to be your top right-hand defenseman, it's not great. You're looking at Barron and Edmondson likely being your second pair, maybe, with Harris and Weidman maybe being your third pair. I don't know. Chris Weidman doesn't necessarily have to be an everyday guy. Barron's a decent prospect defenseman, still only 20 years old, doesn't have a lot of experience. Would it really hurt to have a guy like PK around, and maybe they have a little bit more of a mix there to see what they can do? Takes the pressure off of Barron a little bit. They don't necessarily have to play Weidman every single game, and they can kind of find more of a mix. He could be a good, veteran guy to help some of the younger defensemen. I still think he could be, somebody who could help a team. So we'll see. I mean, it's a lot of people would like to see it happen, mainly because of how things ended for him in Montreal. I know there's a big debate over really his time in Montreal before. Obviously he had a good contract for Marc Bergevin, but clearly had some players on the team that did not like him. I think that's pretty obvious, pretty apparent, including Brendan Gallagher and Max Pacioretty, and of course Gallagher's still there. So I do wonder if that, a whole dynamic might prevent things from happening too, but we'll see. People change, people grow up, people mature. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see where PK lands and if Montreal is a possibility. On the trade front, of course, like I said, we saw Columbus make a cap dump today. We should possibly see one from the Penguins here in the next little bit as well. We might see a buyout as well. If you're looking at players like Jason Zucker, Marcus Pettersson, or Brian Dumoulin are your most likely players to be taken off the roster. I think the only one they would do a buyout on would be Zucker. I'm not even 100% convinced that takes place. And even though Zucker may not have a huge value, if they give him away for basically nothing to get the cap space, a team might be more willing to take him, maybe for fourth or fifth round pick or something like you've seen in Pacioretty trade or what you saw in the Bjorkstrand trade, right? So, the Penguins have to do something. It's just a matter of what. They also at the same time have more than enough defensemen. And still even another player like Evan Rodriguez is still out there unsigned. At this point, I think that's fair to say that the odds of him going back to Pittsburgh probably aren't the best given their cap situation now. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in Pittsburgh, but they're still certainly not a team that you can say is done. They have some more moves left in them, and it could be a combination of free agent signings. It could be a combination of buyouts or trades that we'll see here likely in the next week or so for them to kind of make their kind of final assessment here and get sorted out. For the cap in Vancouver, JT Miller is still a Vancouver Canuck, one of the top players listed on the NHL trade bait boards across all the NHL top insider reports. And of course, the deal never materialized. So it sounds like the Vancouver Canucks, of course, were asking for a lot for Miller. Teams were not willing to pony up and pay it. I do wonder as well if part of that was the fact, I know early on in the trade process, they were not letting Miller and his agent speak to other teams about an extension. So that probably would kind of turn teams off. And I think they were starting to let that happen maybe after the draft. At least it was rumored to be. So I don't know if that's still a whole lot. Maybe the market for a contract for him because of his age, because he's a productive guy. But certainly, it's going to take him well into his mid to late 30s here if he gets a long-term deal. Maybe there's some reluctance on that front. And maybe the market wasn't quite there like they expected it to be, because now a lot of the talk is I think there's a trade is still possible. But I think if this goes too much longer, it's more likely that they're going to try and change gears and see if they can't work out a contract extension. Now, of course, there's no pressure here. They don't need to get a deal done. He still has one more year left on his contract. They very well could go into this, see how the season goes, kind of see if the fit's still there, see how he plays, and either do a contract extension or a trade sometime during the season. It just seems like it's less likely, I think, that we're going to see something happen. I know a team like the New York Islanders, for example, like we talked about with Kadri, to me, Miller would be a terrific fit there. I don't know if they've had conversations with Vancouver. It was rumored that they were one of the teams having a look at it, but certainly Lou has been pretty invisible so far and pretty quiet. Nobody really knows. I don't know if he went on vacation and just left the roster where it is or what, but he's certainly, got work that needs to be done, but nobody seems to know what's going on with the Islanders. So I don't know if he comes back and takes a run at Kadri, Miller trade, or does he do nothing? Only time will tell. Nobody really knows. A lot of top secret information there on Long Island. But for right now, it looks like JT Miller more likely to stay with the Canucks for at least a little while longer. And of course, there's the whole Matthew Tkachuk situation, which is one of the bigger deals that we should see somewhat more imminently in the next week to 10 days. But of course, the Flames have time. They're probably going to take it, see where things go. The arbitration hearing is not till August 11th, so they don't have to make a huge rush in that regard. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comment section. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.